Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be talking to you about DUI laws in Pennsylvania, and I'm going to be giving you just an overview of the current driving under the influence DUI laws in Pennsylvania. For the purposes of today's presentation, we are just going to be concerned with your first offense, DUIs. In Pennsylvania, the punishments for DUIs are based on a tiered system. In other words, you are punished according to how high or how low your blood alcohol content was, provided it's over the legal limit, which in Pennsylvania is 0.08. So when you're pulled over for a DUI and asked to provide a blood or a breath sample, and the officer gets back a reading of what that blood alcohol content is, that's how the punishment is determined. So looking at this chart, and again for today we're going to be talking about first offense DUIs. If you are arrested and you are Tier 1, which means that your blood alcohol is anywhere from a 0.08 to a 0.099%, you are considered Tier 1. This is an ungraded misdemeanor. The statutory max, the most you can be punished, is 6 months probation. The next line down says mandatory minimum. That means, is there a minimum amount of time you have to go to jail for? In this case, for a first offense, you do not. The mandatory fine is $300, you must pay. The treatment line indicates AHSS, which is Alcohol Highway Safe Driving School, which are classes that you have to attend and you have to pay for, anywhere from, I'd say, $200 and up as far as a cost. CRN evaluation, which you also have to pay for, which is the court reporting network, which is responsible for taking some statistical data from you, and a drug and alcohol evaluation, which will determine whether or not you need additional treatment, such as counseling, AA meetings, anything like that. All of those things cost money, and all of those costs will fall on you. For this first offense, Tier 1 DUI, there is not a license suspension, and you are not required to install an ignition interlock system into your car. Moving forward to Tier 2. Tier 2 is when your blood alcohol content is anywhere from a 0.10 to a 0.159%. For this scenario, first offense, the maximum amount of time you can go to jail is 6 months. It no longer calls for just probation. If you'll note, it now says jail. The mandatory minimum you must go to jail is 48 hours. The fine jumps to the bottom being $500 as opposed to $300. And again, the classes and evaluations, this time there is, if you will note, a 12-month license suspension. No ignition interlock. As a side note, if you look to the side, you will see that as you go higher, second, third offense or more, that ignition interlock does kick in. Tier 3 is the highest level in Pennsylvania. Tier 3 is anything over a 0.16. Also in this category are controlled substances. In other words, if you're driving under the influence of something other than alcohol that you shouldn't have in your system while you're driving, illegal drugs, prescription drugs that you aren't supposed to drive on, and refusals. Refusals are when you refuse, as its plain meaning, to give a blood or a breath sample to a police officer when asked. The law in Pennsylvania will automatically assume that you are at your highest level. So what happens in this Tier 3 first offense situation? The maximum, again, is 6 months in jail. The mandatory minimum jumps to 72 hours. You must go to jail for 72 hours. Your fine jumps to the lowest level being $1,000 as opposed to $750. The same classes are required, the same evaluations. Again, a license suspension of 12 months and no ignition interlock. First offense is anything that occurs for the first time or something that is outside the 10-year rule. 10-year rule means that in order for something to be considered a second offense, it has to have occurred within 10 years. So for example, if I had a DUI 15 years ago and then I got a new one now, they would both be first offenses because they weren't committed within 10 years of each other. So why do I tell you all about this? I tell you about this because I hope you will see from the chart that it's expensive. Not only is there fines and costs associated, there are also classes that will cost you money. More importantly, what I'm showing you now is examples of tragic accidents that have occurred as a result of drunk drivers. There can be very serious consequences. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and I hope that you will not drink and drive, because number one, you can't afford it, and number two, it can be dangerous. Thank you.